Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be recapping the men's event at the 2024 Finlandia Trophy. So, for starters, I have to say, this is the third time I am recording this episode. It's been crazy the last couple days. I was in Kentucky for work, so I brought my podcasting equipment with me, thinking I'll be able to record in a hotel room just fine, no problem. First episode, this ridiculous background noise of like beeping, could not get rid of it whatsoever. So then my next brilliant idea was to record it in the bathroom with the door closed. Tested it, audio sounded fine, or so I thought. Finished that episode, I listened to it, and it sounds like I'm in a tunnel. So hopefully this third time is the charm, and I'll be able to get this episode out finally. All right, getting into the results here. First, we got to talk about Junhwan Cha of South Korea, who had to withdraw after the short program. So let's talk about his short program. He had a fall on his quad salchow. He landed his triple Lutz, triple loop combo that he does, but he did get an undercall on the loop, and then he landed his triple axel. I thought that he brought more to this program than we really seen from him all year. Unfortunately, with the fall on the sow and with the undercall on the loop, plus he only got a level 3 on 2 of his spins and his step sequence, he ended up being 7th place after the short program, and he chose to withdraw. What he said to the media after the fact was that basically has replaced his boots, and that aggravated his ankle injury that kept him out of some of his competitions last season, and that he was in pain during the short program, wanted to come in here and qualify for Grand Prix final, and felt like that after the short program being in 7th place, that the best thing to do at that point was to withdraw and rest his injury instead. So hopefully it's not a bad recurrence of that injury, because it really did plague him a lot. Last year, it wasn't clear in the interview whether or not the ankle injury had been completely healed or not. With the whole boot issue, it's hard to say that a boot issue would cause an ankle injury. So when they said re-aggravated, it makes me wonder, well, was he even at 100% to begin with? Not really sure, and that wasn't clear. But just the short program here for Junhwan Cha. He's got some domestic competitions that he's got coming up for him, and hopefully he'll be back to full strength when we see him again internationally at 4 continents. Getting into the results here, Yuma Kageyama is the winner, going back-to-back after his win at NHK Trophy. In the short program, there were a couple of times I was asking myself, is that Shoma? Like, his arm movements were just so gorgeous in this program. I love the connecting steps that he does in between elements. I love the step sequence. I think that this is probably the best men's short program this season. He got level 4s on everything, did not have any calls. In the free skate, however, very uncharacteristic program from him, probably the worst that we have seen him skate since he came back from injury last season. He popped his quad flip right off the bat, and he stepped out of his quad salchow. Also had a bad step out of his triple axel, and then he couldn't really hang on to his second triple axel, and he wasn't able to get a combo off. So he just barely held on to the lead here. Thankfully, he had a really big lead after the short program, and there was a lot of messiness in both the short program and in the free skate here. And so nobody was really able to capitalize off of that and get the win here. So hopefully this is just a fluke, and just going back to back didn't agree well with him. We'll be back to what we used to seeing with Yuma when we see him at Grand Prix final in a couple of weeks. In second place here was Kevin Amos of France. In the short program, I thought his quad toe and his combo was a little bit low, but still was able to pull off the triple toe. And then his last jump, his triple Lutz, he popped and fell on it. It just didn't happen for him. He has a lot of difficult connecting steps into it. I don't think that's the reason that he fell on it. He landed it perfectly fine at Skate America. He has very big jumps, and at times I think it is very hard for him to control if he's not like completely in tune with it. I am impressed with how he can engage the crowd as much as he does and then just goes and pops off into very difficult jumps. Yes, he had a mistake here. He ended up in fourth after the short program, but was able to pull off in the free skate, not quite what he did at Skate America, which would have been very difficult to recreate that magic that he had there, having so many months off from skating and definitely having a long time since the last time he skated well. So the moment that he created at Skate America would have been very hard to have duplicated anyway. Was not as clean here as he was at Skate America. Started off with a couple of mistakes, fell on the quad toe, and then his second quad toe had a 3-turn and then got up a double toe. But he did really settle down after the quads and he landed everything else really well. It's a very compelling program. And I was really glad to see that even after the couple of mistakes that he had at the beginning, that it did not create a domino effect for the rest of the program, that everything else was really well done. I mean, we've seen at times with Kevin, he always brings a performance, even if the jumps aren't going well. He's always bringing his best. He never phones it in, but it was good to see that it didn't rattle him and he landed the rest of the jumps. He does low-key do a lot of acrobatics. Like, have you noticed, like last season, I think I brought it up during the Skate America episode because he did an aerial in his choreo sequence last year. And I'm like, okay, how is it okay to do an aerial, which is a cartwheel with no hands, but it's not okay to do a backflip? That wasn't me advocating for a backflip, but I'm like, what's the difference, right? Now, granted, I'm sure the backflip is much more dangerous than doing an aerial, but it's still like acrobatics. And then like in his free skate here, he does like at one point, like this front flip handspring kind of a thing that he does. He does another aerial, like some of these butterflies that he do. Looks kind of like Ilya's raspberry, just not as many spins. But I'm like, he kind of does a lot of acrobatics, like different than what Adam's out there doing, but he's still, like finding a way to like put a little bit of that in there. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just like, can we notice though that he is out there doing some like low level gymnastics? All right. And third place here was Daniel Grassl. He was sixth after the short program, but was first in the free skate by a mile and pulled himself up to the podium. In his short program, he is skating to Chopin. He has this question mark on his right hand glove. I have no idea why it's there. I would love some clarity as to what that's supposed to mean exactly. I don't think it has anything to do with the piece of music that he chose, but I'm trying to determine if he's trying to portray some kind of character or if it has anything to do with the suspension that he has endured. In the short program, he landed the quad loop, fell on his triple lutz, which my thought was, okay, is it because he also does a quad lutz and has that messed up his timing in there? It's a very lyrical program. It's not a style that he's quite mastered yet, but it's not bad. I like the variations that he does with his leg and his combination spin. It's an interesting program. In the free skate, he started off really strong. Quad lutz, quad loop, quad salchow. Didn't all have pretty landings, but all landed. Mark definitely questioned the rotation on both the loop and the salchow, but only the loop got a call, and it was just a cue call at that. Then he does a triple axel, triple toe, which I always love, a good nod to 90s, early 2000s skating. The second triple axel he does is just right on the music, and it's followed by 2 double axels. So he does have a lot of base value in this program. He actually got over 100 on his technical element score, which we've also seen Ilya do, Yuma do, Shun Sato, Soda, Yamamoto. Those are the only ones that we've seen score over 100 points in technical elements this season. And then Kevin, that very close at Skate America, he got a 98.9. So that puts him in a league that will allow him to be in contention for medals if he can keep up this type of performance, at least in the tech score. In terms of the second mark, I like the idea of this program better than the execution of it, but I do feel like if he stays committed and he keeps working at it, I think it has potential. Like the Swan Lake at the end is super interesting. Daniel's problem before was consistency. And here we've seen him throw down two strong free skates. Perhaps he's turned a corner. Before I move on to the rest of the competitors, we did get an interview that came out with Daniel Grassl yesterday. And so I wanted to read some of the quotes from that interview. I'm also going to put a link to it in the show notes because it's very lengthy. I'm not going to read everything, but there are some really interesting tidbits in here. So this is what the interview says. Can you explain how the final decision on the case sounded? After all, no official information has been published. Daniel says, I was suspended for a period of 1 year. This is the minimum punishment in this situation because I was able to prove the unintentionality of the violation. Let me clarify, a year without competitions from September 1st, 2023, and I was able to train in 10 months. So on July 1st, I went out on the ice in Turin. He says also in the article, it was the most difficult year of my life. I did not go out on the ice at all, not once. I had very clear restrictions. It was impossible. I was denied access to any skating rink that is somehow related to WADA or NATO Italia. And at the skating rinks for mass skating, I had to be 100% sure that people who are related to sports do not skate with me. This was also part of the sanctions imposed on me. I tried to find such ice, but it was very difficult. The interviewer asked, whose decision was it? WADA. Daniel said, this is the verdict of NATO Italia. It's NADO. That stands for National Anti-Doping Organization. But in close cooperation with WADA, he continues, unfortunately, I can't give you much detail. The interviewer then says, okay, let's rewind. How did these three flags appear in general? Daniel replies, I did not update my real location in the system 3 times. It happened at different times and in different countries. There were many versions on the internet that do not correspond to reality. For example, they wrote that I missed all 3 tests during training in Russia. That's not true. Only the last pass fell on my stay in Moscow. The other 2 happened earlier when I left Italy for competitions in other countries, for example, to Japan. The third case, which took place in Russia, was not even a missed test, but a lack of communication. Caused by communication problems during long proceedings, we managed to prove that this happened through no fault of mine. The interviewer asked, how is it? Didn't the internet work? Daniel says, I can't tell you in detail, but yes, I had some problems with the SIM card, and doping officers should have a way to get in touch with you at any time, and I had a problem with the equipment back then. And then the interviewer says, well, it happens for the first time. Then the second time, were you scared by this point? Daniel says, yes, very much. I was in panic. A lot of people tried to help me then, including our federation. They double-checked how the system works, helped me keep track of everything. Even before leaving for Russia, I checked the system 100 times. I realized that there was no right to make a mistake. In Moscow, I was sure there was no problems. Everything was clean. I was in control of the situation. Unfortunately, it turned out not to be so. The interviewer asked, how did you find out about the third flag? He says it was a shock. It was in July 2023. I'm in a training camp in Novogorsk. We were training with Nika Agazzi. When I found out about what happened, I started shaking. I was ready to fly to Italy immediately to take a doping test, but I was told it was too late, but I still packed my things right away and returned to Italy. It was a disaster because I regularly took all the necessary doping tests, both during training in the United States and in Italy. I didn't understand how it was possible. I was super attentive and careful. Of course, I knew that after 3 checkboxes due to incorrectly entered data in the system, disqualification follows. I had 2 warnings by that time, and there were only 8 days left until the end of the calendar year from receiving the first flag. So the article goes on and on. Basically, he's complaining about papers that should have been filed. He says, I need to monitor everything more carefully and check myself not 100 times, but 1,000. I always had problems filling out all of these papers, and I should have turned to my loved ones for help so that they would help me not to miss something important. Now my family is helping me with this. They have access to my account, and they double check everything many times. He goes on to say it was very overwhelming for him, but he also felt like it benefited him in a way because he got to go to university and meet some non-sports friends. The interviewer does try to get some information about his current relationship with Eteri Tuberitsi. It doesn't elaborate on that at all. Basically says that he saw her and he goes on about how he was friends with Adelia Petrosian. So like I said, I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you want to read all about that particular interview. It's still a little sketchy to me because I feel like he talks out of both sides of his mouth, because it's like he's blaming paperwork and he's blaming a SIM card. He says he didn't miss a test, but it was a miscommunication, that he took tests when he was in Italy and the United States, but it still sounds like there was an issue when he was in Russia. So I don't know. The reporter also did ask him about, why do you think people hate you so much? He's like, well, because I went to train with Eteri. We'll see. Exactly. He served his time. Obviously, if it was just nothing, they would not have suspended him. But at least we do have some clarification now on exactly what happened from his own mouth. And we can, maybe start to move on. All right, moving on from the podium here. In fourth place was Sota Yamamoto of Japan, and this is the second time this season that he has been just off the podium at a Grand Prix event. In the short program, he did a quad toe, triple toe, then he turned and stepped out of his quad salchow, and he fell on his triple axel. The quality, though, is so high on his other elements that he still got an 82 on his short program, which I thought was pretty good, having two major errors. And his free skate still had issues with the quad salchow. He was a little low and forward on it. He fell on his second triple axel. I found that he was not as clean as Lucas Bridgke was, who finished underneath him in fifth. But Sota was able to stay ahead of him really due to the power of the base value of quads. He did land 3 here, and that was able to keep him over Lucas, who was cleaner. I do really enjoy both of Sota's programs, and I really love the step sequence that he does in his free skate. In fifth place here was Lucas Bridgke of Switzerland. In the short program, the words that are on his shirt, according to Mark Hanreddy, who was doing the commentary on this event, said they stand for resilience, freedom, and courage. So it's cool to know what exactly the words are and what they mean. It does look really cool, like when he's spinning. I would love to see this program just once this season skated well. I feel like it could be really, really impactful, but every time I've seen it this season, this time included, there have just been mistakes. Here, he had a hand down on his quad toe, did a 3-turn in between, and just a double toe off. Did do a clean triple axel, but then he stepped out of his triple lutz. I do get a little bit of that Papadakis and Cizeron feeling when they were skating to a poem during his step sequence, when he's skating to that monologue. But I do really like this program. In his free skate, he pulled off the quad toe, triple toe here, then immediately does a second quad toe and pops it into a double. But that was the only real error that he had. The triple axles were working in this competition. They haven't been as clean this season in some of his previous comps. He did do a triple lutz double toe in his program later that he would like to be a triple toe there on that combo. But this was really the best that he's been so far this season. I really like the music. The program itself still needs more time to gel. It's just not as far along as a short program is, in my opinion. But I think if he doesn't have any more injury setbacks, that he could be ready and should be ready to contend for a medal at Europeans in a couple of months. In sixth place here was Kazuki Tomono of Japan. He is not at 100%. He's got a hip injury that he's dealing with currently. He was second after the short program, but unfortunately 7th in the free skate to finish 6th overall. The short program, this was the best we've seen him in the short program for a minute. He did a quad toe, double toe, quad salchow, and a triple axel, all clean. The step sequence that he does in this program is so fun. I have warmed up to this program a lot since the last time that I've seen it. He got over 90 points here, which I feel like it's been a while since we've seen him get 90 points. He has scored over 100 before in the short program, but that was with a quad toe, triple toe. which is a rarity. I feel like most of the time we see Kazuki with a quad combo, it's usually a double toe on the end of it, but he does have that capability. In the free skate, he really needed to skate well because he was going second to last since he was second after the short program. And he was coming off of really strong skates by Daniel Grassl and Kevin at that point. He had a 5-point lead on Kevin and a 13-point lead on Grassl. And he started strong with a quad toe, double toe, and a second quad toe. Then he popped his quad salchow, and then ultimately his triple axels let him down. He fell on one and popped another. Also had a very uncharacteristic issue with his final spin. Just didn't get into that first sit spin position, and that just really threw him off. Overall, this is just not my favorite Kazuki program. I just don't think it's the best showcase of his talents, and I just haven't warmed up to this one like I have the short program. In 7th place, here was Alexander Salevko of Estonia. And here's a guy that I just feel like is a bit of a tease at this point. Like, he comes out there and you get this feeling like he makes you think he's about to really kill this routine. And then it's always mistake filled or a total splat fest. It's just so disappointing. And this competition was no different. In the short program, he starts out with a quad toe and he falls. And I question whether or not it makes sense to continue to go for the quad toe in the short. Absolutely, he needs a quad. If you're a guy and you're not Jason Brown, you need a quad. But it doesn't mean you've got to have a quad in the short program if it's not a consistent jump for you. And I feel like Salevko's success rate for the quad is better in the long program than it is in the short program. It's not great in either one, but I just feel like he's always digging himself into a hole a lot of the times. And like, maybe it would be wiser to go cleaner. It didn't help that he also did a double axel instead of a triple axel, and that he popped his Lutz in his combo. So he just did a single Lutz triple toe. And it sucks because he's got the whole package. He's got the spins, the jumps, the step sequence. It's got presence, but the jumps are just totally MIA. And then in the free skate, he's actually gone back to last year's free skate. Earlier this season, in his last Grand Prix and his challenger, he was doing this tango program. And I wasn't a fan. In fact, I was pretty hard on it. I thought it was fairly cliche with the music, and it just wasn't really working for me. And I guess him and his team didn't think it was really working for him either. So he's gone back to his free skate from last year, which I was a big fan of. It was number 10 on my season's best list last year. Still got to land the jumps though. And he did land a quad toe here, but he popped the second one into a double. He fell on one of his triple axels and popped the other one into a single, which were all just very, very costly mistakes. His best jumping pass was a triple Lutz, double axel, double axel. I do love the choreo sequence in this program so much. Like, I love the program a lot. He's just got to find some kind of consistencies on his jumps. In 8th place was Vladimir Samolyov from Poland. His short program is to 2 pieces of music from Fatboy Slim. And I kind of feel like I did last year with Nikita Starotsyn's Backstreet Boys short program. Like, am I supposed to be taking this seriously? Like, I don't know what I think of this program. Like, I like the music choices. I wasn't always a Rockefeller Shank fan. Like, I remember when this song came out, the music video was like so long. And a lot of people really loved it. And I just found it so annoying. So I just kind of associated that with the song. So it took me several years to really kind of warm up to the song. I like it a lot now. I think it's really fun skating music to use. I'm just not sure what I think about this program for Vladimir. I don't know. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm not saying I do. I'm neutral. He had a big quad salchow in there. Not a smooth landing. He fell on his triple axel. So those were the big issues that he had in his short program. In his long program, he did this gorgeous quad Lutz. I mean, one of the better quad Lutzes I feel like we've seen this season. Then he goes and pops his quad sow into a double. He had a waxel at some point, which was just fantastic. Just wipe out, basically, with the attempt trying to go into I think it was a triple axel that it was planned. Lots of base value loss between the triple axel that didn't happen and the popped quad sow. The rest of the jumps went really well. He does 2 triples in his second half. He has a really good quality to his jumps. I'm going to pick on something from this program. He does 2 cartwheels, not 1, but 2. One during his choreo sequence, and then another one after his final spin. And I'm like, why are we doing 2 cartwheels? Like, if you want to do one after your spin to qualify as like a difficult exit, cool. But like, let's pick something else to do for our choreographic sequence. I don't know why we're doing 2. He is one that I really feel like cuts off a lot of his movements, really shows up in his step sequence. He just needs more extension and just more complete movements overall. In 9th place here was Camden Polkanen of the US. In his short program, he decided to take out the quad and try to go clean. Unfortunately, it did not work out. He did land the triple flip, but he fell on his triple axel, and frankly, I didn't think it looked close. And then on his triple Lutz triple toe combination, he fell on the triple toe. None of his spins were done well. The camel spin was the worst. He did avert disaster, but he only got a level 4 on 1 of his spins, and none of them got great GOE. So I wasn't super encouraged by the short program. And then going into the free skate, Mark Hanratty said that he had a rough warm-up, and I was like, okay, what are we going to get here? And it was very kind of up and down. Triple axel Euler, double sow. I know we'd like to do a triple sow there, but not terrible. Popped Lutz, stepped out of a triple axel. But overall, even with the issues with the jumps, I felt like just from the beginning, he was more invested in this program than he was in France. I still would not say that this is his max effort on his performance, but it was better. I felt like at least he had a pulse here, where I was really questioning the effort in France. It's weird because like in France, it looked like it was a training issue. He seemed like he didn't have the stamina to really get through the entire 4-minute program. Here, the stamina didn't seem to be an issue. It seemed like it was more in his head. I mean, he attempts 3 triple Lutzes in this program, doubles one, does a single on another one, and then one he fully completes the rotation on, which makes me feel like in this event, then it's more in his head, right? Because I don't think it was a stamina issue that he was popping things that are normally good and easy jumps for him. He had 130 points here, which is quite the ways away from his personal best. His personal best is from the 2022 Worlds, where he finished 3rd in the free skate there. He got 182 points, which is a 50-point gap between what we've seen here, which I think the last 2 events is probably like the floor. This is the basement. And the World's performance is like the ceiling, right? We all want to see him much closer to the ceiling. And frankly, he's going to have to get there if he wants to make it back to Worlds, if he wants to make it to the Olympics a year from now. He's headed to Golden Spin in a couple weeks. I'm not expecting to see a great improvement 2 weeks from now, just like I wasn't really expecting to see a great improvement here from 2 weeks ago in France. But what I do hope to see is by the time National rolls around, for him not to be doing 130-point free skates. In 10th place was Makar Suntsev of Finland. In his short program, he's skating to Moonlight Sonata. He did a double Lutz triple toe instead of a triple Lutz triple toe, and he had a botched triple axel, and he turned out of his triple flip and just barely avoided falling. So a lot of technical mistakes. He is a very good spinner, nice Ina Bauer in there. He's got great step sequence to the music, so it wasn't a total fail. In the free skate, he opted to not do a triple axel or a quad, and the strategy almost worked. He was clean until his last 2 jumping passes, and then he fell on a triple flip and then stepped out of a triple toe. His most difficult combo was a triple flip double axel. I am a fan of I would rather you skate clean with the content that you can do than fall all over the place with content that you can't. So I'm not mad at the strategy at all. And then in 11th place was Walter Venänen of Finland also. This guy is super impressive. He is an MD, PhD, medical doctor with a additional doctorate degree. He was at Worlds last year. He did not make the free skate. He is 37 years old. This is his 20th season as a senior skater. Wow. Obviously, probably can't commit a whole lot of time to his skating career since he's also working as a doctor. He comes out with a little bit lower tech content than we're probably used to seeing amongst some of the men, especially in the short program. Just as just goes for a triple toe combo, which he stepped out of the first triple toe and he wasn't able to get the combo off. He also did not attempt a triple axel, and he actually stepped out of the double axel that he did. Did think he had some cool moves in his step sequence, and he had nice triple lutz in there. In his free skate, skating to Far Away, beautiful music. I love this song. It's a song I've had for years that I originally heard on So You Think You Can Dance many, many moons ago. Great skating music. He actually attempted a quad toe here, which was interesting. It was landed with 2 feet and under rotated, but he obviously has that capability in his wheelhouse. Popped his triple lutz. He did do the triple toe that he missed in the short program. I thought it was a nice program, just a lot of jump issues, unfortunately for him. My Pamchenko Award for the men's event. Not a lot of contenders. I mean, probably like Yuma and Kazuki's short program, Daniel's free skate would probably be the contenders. I'm going to give it to Kazuki, who I feel like hasn't skated that well in a while, and it was good to see. We just need to pair that with a good long program too. Looking ahead to next week at Cup of China, it's the last stop in the Grand Prix series. So we have no U.S. skaters this week, but we've got Wesley Chu of Canada, 3 Chinese men, Yudong Chen, Boyang Jin, Dewai Dai, Adam Seo Himfa of France. We've got Nika Agazzi of Georgia, 2 Italian skaters, Nikolai Mimola and Matteo Rizzo, Shun Sato of Japan, Mikhail Shadorov from Kazakhstan, Yoon-Yum Kim of Korea, and Denis Vasiliev from Latvia. So a lot of implications for Grand Prix final, as I'll talk about here in just a second. But as far as who do I think for the podium here, I think the easy ones to pick out are Adam for gold. I feel like we don't know what we're going to get with Adam these days, but still they're going to be the best pick for gold. For silver, Shun Sato also seems like a good bet as well. For bronze, any number of people who can be contenders, right? Matteo Rizzo, Mikhail Shadorov, Nika Agazzi you could throw in there. Bo Yang and Mimola could certainly be wild cards. I'm going to go with Mikhail Shadorov here. Wasn't expecting him to get on the podium in his previous Grand Prix, and he did not. But here, I think this is a much better shot for him to get on it, and we'll see if he does this triple axel quad toe again like he did last time. I don't think we've gotten any Elia quotes from that. We need to get an Elia quote in here about what he thinks about that triple axel quad toe that he did. All right, so let's look at our standings for Grand Prix Final. We now have 3 people who are in, and that is Ilya Malinin of the US and Yuma Kageyama of Japan. Both of them with 2 wins and 30 points are in, as is Kevin Amos, who has 2 silver medals, and with 26 points, he is also in. The next guy on the bubble is Daniel Grassl, who with a silver and a bronze has 24 points and has a really good shot to get into the final as well. I put Andrew Torgashev on here with 20 points, not because I think that he's going to get in. Yes, there's like a whole lot of craziness that could get him in, but it's really just to show some love for my friend at skatingscores.com. So I left him on here for that purpose and that purpose alone. But our contenders really are going to be Adam Seo Himfa, who has 15 points, Shun Sato, who has 13 points, and then Nika Agazzi and Mikhail Shadorov, who have 9 points. So all of these men, if they win, they are in. For instance, even Nika Agazzi and Mikhail Shadorov with 9 points, because if they get 15 points on top of the 9, they would have 24 points, and they would get in ahead of Daniel Grassl because of the tiebreaker being if you've won a Grand Prix. So that's how all of these guys get in. If they win, they're in. Now, Adam, because he has a win, he could get in with as low as a 4th place finish, because that would also give him 24 points. And with the win, he would get the nod over Daniel. There also are ways that he can get in with a 5th place finish here, but he would need some help. So the way to get it on his own would be to finish at least 4th, which I really expect him to do. Shun Sato with 13 points would guarantee himself a spot with either a win or a 2nd place finish, which would give him 26 points and would also put him in. He can also get in with a bronze medal finish here, but then it would come down to the total score between him and Daniel, which I suppose if I had done some math before, I could tell you exactly what that score was. I did not do math before. Maybe I'll put that on social media later in the week. And then I already mentioned with Nika Agazzi and Mikhail Shadorov, their best bet to get in is to win. A whole lot of foolishness would have to happen for them to get, a silver and get in with other. There's all these kind of scenarios, but those are the most likely ways that those four could get into those last three spots that are available. I think the most likely combination is probably Ilya, Yuma, Kevin, Daniel, Adam, and Shun. But it's men, so who knows? All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast and for your patience in me getting this episode out. Which means if it got this episode out, it means third time was the charm and it worked. All right. So as always, you can find me on a plethora of socials: Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and X, all the same handle at iSkate Podcast. YouTube is also at iSkate Podcast. You can also send me a line via email at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com. I'll be back with more recaps. I hope you have a great rest of your week.